I'm TKNORTH, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to get the most out of the new updates in Lightroom Classic 9.3. Hey everyone, I'm photographer Tim Northy or TKNORTH. So if you'd opened any of your Adobe apps recently, you may have noticed a few new updates. The icons look a little bit different and there's been some updates to all the software. So today we're talking about Lightroom Classic. There's some really big updates here, whether you're new to Lightroom or you're pretty experienced editing in Lightroom. There's definitely some updates that are really going to help your workflow, speed up your workflow, and some new tools that are definitely worth trying out. So straight off the bat, you'll notice that they've added in the little C after Lightroom, which is really handy if you ever got confused with Lightroom, the cloud version, and Lightroom Classic. Now they've added that C, so that'll help some people with the confusion. But there's also some really new exciting updates in the software. So today I'm going to run through some of the most useful updates and also how you can get the most out of these updates into your workflow, speed up your workflow, and improve your overall editing. So the first one, which is pretty exciting, there is definitely an improvement in the overall performance and speed of Lightroom. So first of all, you'll notice when you're scrolling, it seems to scroll quite quickly, which is great. Now, if you come over to develop, the other thing I've noticed, if you keep an eye on your little preview here and also the film strip down the bottom, any adjustments you make with the sliders, you won't actually see them on the preview or the thumbnail. That just means it gives it a little bit more processing power until you actually decide on where you want the slider to be, and then it will update. So I think little improvements like that even help the overall speed of Lightroom. So that's the first one. It's the overall performance of Lightroom, which is always nice when you get little improvements like that speed up your workflow. So the second one that you'll definitely notice if you've updated any of your apps is the overall user experience, and they've also updated some of the visuals. So perhaps the most noticeable one is the tone curve. So let's open up the tone curve. So you can see it looks slightly different. You've got your colored curves here, you've got the overall curve on this one. And to open up those little adjustment sliders is this N one. You'll also notice when you go to those colored curves, you've actually got the colors there. You can see which colors are represented on those curves, which is really handy. So if you've ever edited using just the normal version of Lightroom or the cloud version of Lightroom, you would have noticed they have these colors there already. So they've brought that over to Lightroom Classic, which is great. If you're unfamiliar with the tone curve, you're unsure of where the colors are, this is really handy when you're new to Lightroom. So that's a definite improvement. The other thing, if you come down to your HSL tab and just select color, you'll see your color selection for the individual colors look a little bit different, and then you can click all colors here at the end. So that's a nice little update as well. And you'll probably notice a few other minor adjustments with the overall user experience, which so far for me have been all positive. I even like the new little logos, which sometimes take a little bit of getting used to, but so far so good. So the third update that I want to talk about is probably one of the most exciting ones. It's an option I wish that was available on Lightroom a little bit sooner, and that allows you to add in a selected hue to any of your selective edits. So say you're using a radial filter, a graduated filter, or even a brush, you can actually change the color to any color you like, not having to just use the white balance to change the color. You can actually select the color. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's open up the brush tool. You'll notice already there's this new slider with hue. So as an example, I'm going to really quickly paint in this area of this house. Let's just turn on show selected mask overlay so I can see exactly where I've painted in. Now I'm going to do a really rough and pretty terrible job at painting this in just to show you what you can do. So let's turn that off. Come over to your hue slider, and it means you can pretty much change that color house to whatever you like. You can also hit option as you're doing that and just make really fine adjustments, or in the same way you can select that use fine adjustment and it won't slide as much as if you have it unticked. So this is a really useful tool. You can use it on your radial and graduated filters as well. Previously, it's something you would have had to open up Photoshop if you wanted to change the color of just one area, or of course you could use the white balance, but this gives you a lot more power when doing that. And I can definitely see people getting really creative with changing their colors in specific areas of photo. So super useful tool and a pretty exciting new update in Lightroom. So the fourth one that's really exciting is these new ISO adaptive presets. Now for this, you need to have 2 photos or more shot at different ISOs, and then you can make a preset that's going to change the noise reduction and sharpening depending on the ISO of the individual photo. So let's jump in and I'll show you exactly how that works. Now I've got one photo here, the ISO is at 50. I've got another, the ISO is at 1000. So if we go through and just make some quick adjustments, so you can see that there has been some changes made to the image. I'm going to use camera calibration because it just makes it obvious to see. And then I'm going to come down to detail. I'm going to change the sharpening. So for this one, I don't need to sharpen it too much. ISO 50, I don't really need any noise reduction. So let's just go 54 and 0 noise reduction. So then I'm going to come to my other photo. I'm going to copy all those settings across. Let's just go check all. And what that means on this one is copied the same sharpening and same noise reduction. But what I want to do, because this one was shot at ISO 1000, it's going to need a little bit more noise reduction because the higher the ISO, it's going to have more noise. So for that one, let's just go up to 25 and maybe bring up the sharpening again, because there's more noise reduction. I'm going to bring up the sharpening a little bit more. So make sure you have those 2 photos selected. As normal, to save a preset, you want to go develop new preset. So this looks as it normally would, but the new inclusion is this little box down the bottom. If I tick that, create ISO adaptive preset, and let's just call that ISO. I'm going to save that. I've got both selected, obviously create. Let's come across to a different image somewhere with the ISO somewhere in the middle, so 640. Let's come down and find that preset. There it is, ISO. I'm going to apply that to this photo, and you'll notice that the noise reduction and sharpening is somewhere in between the middle of where I applied it to this one with the higher ISO and this one with the really low ISO. This is really useful because it will automatically do noise reduction and sharpening depending on your ISO. So this is really useful if you use a lot of presets. So the 5th update that I'm really excited about is the inclusion of your default camera settings, tone curve, optics, and a few other things in presets. I'll show you what I mean by that. If you come into your presets, you'll notice these defaults like Adobe default, Adobe Color, Adobe Landscape are all included in presets now. So before you would have found them over here in your color profile. Now they're also included over here in your defaults. You also notice you've got similar ones for optics. You've also got similar ones for levels of grain, and also a few curves that you can apply as presets, which are all included in the software. So if you come over and, for example, I wanted to use Adobe Landscape. So let's just reset this photo. If I want to use some of these presets, you'll notice Adobe Landscape plus lens or plus lens plus noise reduction. So what this will do is actually apply your lens corrections automatically. So if I come down there, you can see that the lens corrections were turned on. Because I've selected plus noise reduction, it will also apply a level of noise reduction depending on the ISO. So these are really useful presets as well, really handy to be able to use. The other thing that's really useful, if you come down to optics, you've got some that already include just your lens corrections. So if I wanted to turn on just the lens corrections for this photo, which I usually do for every photo before I edit anyway, you can do that simply by selecting a preset. Now, what's even more useful about this is if you come up to your preferences, so Lightroom preferences, and if I go presets, this will automatically be on default. If you want your imports to automatically come in with lens corrections turned on, which I would recommend doing because you usually should have it on for every photo anyway, I can come down to preset, come down to optics, lens, and chromatic aberration correction. And that will automatically turn on those 2 lens corrections with every file or photo that I import. So that's really handy. You can also override master for specific cameras. So if you have different cameras and you say one you always take landscapes with, you could perhaps turn on your default landscape, lens, and noise reduction. So these are really handy presets that you can apply before you even start editing. You can use them as you import, which is a really fast way to improve your workflow. And I'm definitely going to have those lens corrections on for any photos that I import. Previously, you had to save your own preset to do this, and you could still do it, but this is a little bit quicker and it's super handy. The other way you can do that, if you go back to library and you want to import something, you can also use those settings just for one specific import. Rather than all your imports, you can come down and select a preset here. Say you just wanted to have optics, lens correction on for just that import, you could do it here. Say all the photos you're importing are landscape photos, you may want to come to defaults and go to Adobe Landscape plus Lens plus Noise Reduction. So every photo that you import with that particular import is going to automatically have those settings applied, which can really speed up your workflow as well. So really handy inclusion in the update as well. So there you have it, 5 of the most useful features or updates that are included in the new version of Lightroom Classic 9.3. Of course, there is some other inclusions in the update. I'll put the link to the full release down below so you can check that out if you're interested. It also includes an update to support some new cameras and lenses, which is always nice as well. I would definitely recommend updating if you haven't already, because there's some really cool new features that should improve your overall workflow and also your overall editing. Of course, there's updates to a lot of the Adobe apps, so things like Photoshop and even Camera Raw have some new updates as well. So check those out as well if you haven't already. But for the moment, I'm TKNORTH. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you guys here very soon. Bye for now.